With Dan Tortora on site, on location. We are here with you at Myers Creek, and of course we are on 720 Van Rensselaer Street in Syracuse, New York, in the Syracuse Inner Harbor. And of course I am joined by Isaac Alford, Tortora and Alford, something we've done for many years for Syracuse pre and post. And I am very excited that we get to talk about a Syracuse victory. It was let's get a round of applause for Syracuse. Show Syracuse some love here tonight.
All right, definitely.
Yes. We were in the press box just a little while ago, freaking out just a little bit. So let's give it cheers. Everybody cheers each other here tonight. We're going to cheers you with some Fran Brown Shirley Temple. So cheers to everybody here tonight. And one more round of applause for Syracuse. Let's show Syracuse some love.
There we go.
A win in the Northeast over UConn to start off the season at home, 1-0 at home, and then 1-1 overall with the neutral game on site down in Mercedes-Benz Stadium against Tennessee. So I am here once again with Isaac Alford. I'm Dan Tortora, and Wake Up Call is going to be with you for every single home game. We will be either pregame or postgame based on the timing. So we are postgame today because of the early game, and this Friday night we are going to be pre-gaming since the game's at 7 o'clock. So, Isaac, as we always do, just that original thought, first thing on your mind coming out of the game.
It's always good to beat UConn. It wasn't quite a 6 overtime game, but I take an overtime win anytime. So, I give credit to the team for sticking to it. It didn't start off the way they wanted to start, but, they stuck with it. The offense found a way to make some plays far at the end, and the defense did a fantastic job in the second half to hold UConn to 6 points after giving up 14 points in the first half. So, it was a great team win. Even though Fran said he didn't like the way they executed, wasn't the way Syracuse should play, but I think that's something that they can build on and go for it.
Yeah, that's the thing. And Coach Hicks, who's in the building here with us, one of the greatest people that I've ever met in not just the sports world, but the world in general. Coach Hicks has gotten all 32 NFL teams to come to Syracuse, and that's win or lose. He gets people to get out to the NFL. So shout out to Coach Hicks. When they show the board, Hicksy, let's give a round of applause for Coach Hicks here, who's in the building here tonight. So when they show orange in the NFL, and we all get to cheer for the people currently playing, Coach Hicks has a lot to do with that and the strength and training. So shout out to Coach Hicks for that. Yeah, my thoughts coming off the game was, thank goodness I had to change the picture of my story, because I had one of UConn swarming Syracuse, and I had to change it to Davian Kerr putting his hand up in the end zone and having the official say that the play is dead, and you see a UConn player on the ground and another guy walking away. So, I will say this about Steve Angeli. I asked him going into the game. We had a one-on-one conversation going in just a few days before, and I asked him about playing in front of the fans in the Dome for the first time, and he was talking about how much he couldn't wait for it, and what did he do? 417 passing yards. He threw the ball 53 times in the game, 33 completions, 62.3% completion percentage. So, Angeli, I know he had a few mistakes there. He will be the first person to tell you that he had to take care of the ball and protect it. But down the stretch, and I got to talk with him after the game, just about bending but not breaking, and how well he played in the fourth quarter on the final drive to lead Syracuse down the field, and then in overtime to trust Justice Ross Simmons, who he said, I believe he said that there's nobody he knows that's ever had better hands than Justice Ross Simmons.
So you know what? Give the kid credit because he stood in the pocket, and I like that about him. He doesn't flinch. Yeah. He took some hits today, and he got right back up from those hits. And this offense really believes in him. Like you could tell that, for first game out at the Dome and you throw the ball 53 times for 400-something yards, they definitely follow you. He's the team leader. And you know what? It's going to be some ups and downs with him, but, he's stuck through and through with it. So that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing when it comes to Steve Angeli and, what he did on the road. I was down at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and when we were out at Mercedes-Benz last week when they faced off against Tennessee on neutral ground in Atlanta, Georgia, that was a game where we saw some good things from him too. You look outside of the first quarter where Syracuse was down 17-0, and the score for the last 3 quarters against Tennessee, 28 points Tennessee, 26 points Syracuse.
Yeah.
So you have to think about the fact that they hung with Tennessee those last 3 quarters within 2 points outside of the first quarter. So Syracuse and Steve Angeli found a way to respond against Tennessee, but it was just a little bit late. And they found a way to respond today, and they were able to get the game to their first lead coming down the stretch, 20-17. And thank goodness that 2-point conversion came through.
Yeah.
And let's go into that 2-point conversion where he found Daryl Gill Jr. in the back of the end zone to secure that. Because as soon as Daryl Gill went up and he came down, I was looking at the line and I was looking at his feet, and I'm like, if they don't get it, UConn can get a field goal and come down and win this game.
Yeah, that was a critical 2-point conversion, like you said, because that's exactly what they did. They was on a good rhythm there on that last drive. They left, about a minute or so left on the clock, so that was very important that they made it a 3-point game, because then give UConn credit too, because they made an outstanding 4th and 10 conversion to keep the game going, and they got the field goal to tie it up to take it into overtime.
Well, and I want to say this about Skylar Bell. I know he was on Syracuse's scouting report, but Skylar Bell was the only person to catch a pass on that final drive by UConn in regulation. He caught 3 balls from Joe Fagnano, including the 4th and 10 27-yard completion, where as soon as he caught it, he got swarmed by Syracuse that was trying to rip the ball out from him. So, all I'm going to say about that Syracuse defense is, Skylar Bell, you got to think the ball was going his way, but it was all him in that final drive in the 4th quarter.
Yeah, the quarterback did an excellent job of waiting on the route to open up. He cleared the linebacker and came across the top and beat the safety to the ball. So, he almost knocked it out, but, give the young man credit for holding on to it. And, and the rest is, like I say, taking it into overtime.
Yeah, so when you look back at this game, Isaac, we look at how the game started. What was it that Syracuse initially showed you in this game? What were those initial takeaways? Syracuse got the ball first.
Yeah, and on the first drive, they did a pretty good job taking the ball downfield. They converted on, I believe, 2 third downs, and then when they got into the red zone, they, of course, had to settle for the 4th and 2. And UConn did an excellent job of stopping them on 4th and 2. But early in the game, they was moving the ball, so you didn't really think it was going to be a struggle for those guys. But they did a fantastic job of getting down there early.
Yeah, and watching the game and how it started out between Syracuse and UConn, it was one of those games that I'm not surprised with, because I said going into the game on Wake Up Call in the morning, as we are 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time in our normal time, I had made the statement that when Northeast is playing Northeast, it doesn't matter what conference you're in, it doesn't matter what your record is. UConn's not even in a conference. It comes down to the fact that the history of Syracuse and UConn, let's be real, let's not mince words, they hate each other.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, if it's Rutgers, if it's UConn, if it's Pitt, if it's Syracuse, if it's Penn State, any of those Northeast schools absolutely hate each other. And I said, if you come into the Dome this weekend thinking it's going to be a blowout or that UConn's not going to come ready to play, last year in the second to last game of the season as opposed to the second game of the season this year, Syracuse played UConn, and UConn gave them all they could take in that game as well, where Syracuse won the game 31-24. And keep in mind, how close that was at a time where people weren't giving UConn credit in that game either. So,
right.
Look at how last year went and how history has gone. Syracuse-UConn is going to be a hard-fought game. UConn lost by a touchdown last year. They lost by a touchdown this year.
Yep. Give Coach Moore credit. He did an excellent job getting his team prepared.
And Fran gave him a lot of credit.
Oh, yeah. Fran respects him very much. And, his team came in ready to play. They gave Syracuse everything they can handle. The offensive line had their issues with that defensive line and those stunts and the linebackers blitzing. But, they still stood in there and they did what they had to do. But yeah, UConn, any Northeast team that comes into the Dome, they definitely want to take the victory.
Yeah, and I want to go to, there was a play that was reminiscent of last year, and that was when Cam Edwards had a 71-yard touchdown run in the Dome toward the end of the game to make it a one-touchdown game. I go to this year, and just a few hours ago, where Mel Brown had a 45-yard touchdown run. Cam Edwards is still on the team. Joe Fagnano was the quarterback last year. He's the quarterback this year. And seeing a 40-plus yard touchdown run, you're like, okay, this defense is going to have to find a way to respond, find a way to react. Syracuse's defense today gave up a couple big plays, but they didn't give up a lot.
Right.
And I think when you look back at this game, as much as they gave up a wide-open touchdown to Alex Honig, the tight end, in the end zone, and then gave up that 45-yard run by Mel Brown, when you look back on this game, Syracuse's defense in the second half forced a bunch of 3-and-outs and gave the offense plenty of opportunities. It was more on the Syracuse offense down the stretch to wake up than it was on the defense. And I think when you look back at this game, there was a lot of good moments from Syracuse's defense. It was just that the offense wasn't really clicking until very, very late in the game.
Yeah, I mean, the defense is just give up 14 points at half. It's not a bad score.
Yeah.
Like you said, they had a couple of bad assignment miss on that trick play to get that first score. But no, they held their own. They, like you said, they only gave up technically 6 points in the second half. You know, a lot of credit to those guys hustling. They stopped the problem with the run. You know, so they did what they had to do. And give David Reese some credit too. Late in that game, he was putting a lot of pressure on that quarterback. He was just missing. You know, he had times where he could have probably had a strip sack, you know, whatever, fumble and stuff like that. But, you know, I think they're starting to fill in and figure out what they're going to need to do.
What did I tell you about David Reese before we got started this season?
What's that?
I told you that he was going to harass the quarterback.
Yeah.
I said he was going to get through.
Well, what did Fran say after the game? He said he went to Elijah Robinson and said, "What did we bring him in here for?"
Yeah. Well, and that was the thing is like they asked him about is he going to be the hybrid guy now, or is he going to go inside, or are you going to let him be the edge rusher? And he said, and that's when he said that he went to Elijah Robinson, the defensive coordinator, and he said, "What did we bring him in here for?"
Right.
You know, he's like, "I went to the DC, Elijah, and I said, what did we bring Reese in for? To get after the quarterback." All right, then basically to let him do it. So, and I told you, David Reese, when I'm normally filming my conversations with the guys, I'm filming them from the neck up, and I'm holding my camera there, right? And when it came to David Reese, while I'm filming him, I decided to point down and zoom out a little bit to show everybody that he's got muscles for muscles for muscles. That man's body, like, comes in and out and goes back in. And I just wanted the world to see what David Reese looks like without pads on, so that when he knocks down a quarterback, you know how hard he's hitting that guy.
And credit to him, too. I mean, he's been in college about 8 years. He's been fighting.
Yeah, he told me he's wearing number 8 because this is his 8th year of eligibility. So he did not mince words at all or mince he wasn't hiding. He said, "Listen, this is my 8th year of eligibility." And I was like, "Is that why you're wearing number 8? And he said, "Yeah." Mm-hmm. Very simple.
And he went through all the ups and downs, but he still stuck with it. So give him credit for that.
So I do want to say that I tried the Coach Fran's Shirley Temple yesterday, but this is the new one here. So let's cheers to it. You got to open yours up.
I'm a little behind.
Yeah, you got to open yours up. I've been waiting impatiently to try this. So I had the original recipe, Coach Fran's Shirley Temple. This is the new recipe one that they brought out of the back for us. So let's see what we got.
Oh yeah, I can get hooked to this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's some good stuff there. So Colby told us that this is straight sugar. And Colby, I'm going to tell you right now, this sugar water that's Coach Fran's Shirley Temple, y'all need to get yourself one of these. I needed this in the Dome to pick me up in the fourth quarter, so I'm happy I got one now, post-game.
Yeah, definitely.
So shout out Coach Fran. I'm a little sad that he got to the Shirley Temple before I did, but all right, Fran, it's all good. This is a good Shirley Temple. But you know, while we enjoy these here at Myers Creek in the Syracuse Inner Harbor, like I told you, I wanted to enjoy a win today. I was a little concerned 14-6 halftime, but you know, like you said,
what did I tell you?
Look out for the comeback stories. So we got to watch this, enjoy it, celebrate it. I said this: Syracuse fans are going to drink after a game no matter what. Exactly. But I want them to drink happily and not angrily. So I'm happy that we get to see Syracuse fans see their team get a victory in the Dome to start off the 2025 season. and to be 1-1 and to now have an opportunity to be on the right side of things when they face off against Colgate.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a big difference getting off the bubble and getting a one win in the win column to, because you want to go in that next week game with some confidence. And I think they did that today. They know that, it might not start, like you say, the way you want it to start, but just stick with it and keep fighting and fighting. And anything can happen in a game.
Well, yeah, and you talk about fighting. My first ever Myers Creek Player of the Week that we do every week on Wake Up Call was unveiled this week, and I already knew who my Player of the Week was going to be. It was in my brain pretty much from Saturday being at the game down at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, and that is Yasin Willis. So I got to honor Yasin, 23 carries, 91 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns against Tennessee of the SEC, a school in the best conference in college football, a school that made it to the college football playoff as an at-large bid last year, albeit having a different quarterback. So Yasin Willis being Player of the Week for me going into this game. It's going to be hard for me to not name him Player of the Week again when he was the guy that got the touchdown to give Syracuse the opportunity to be ahead and to go into overtime. Yasin Willis, he had 3 yards, and then they needed 3 more. They were 6 yards out. He had 3 yards to get to the 3, and then 3 yards to get in to force this opportunity that ended up being overtime. So shout out to Yasin Willis, who I very proudly called my first ever Myers Creek Player of the Week, but now I'm in a position where I think I'm going to do it twice. I can look to Darryl Gill, I can look to Justice Ross Simmons, but Yasin Willis does it again.
Yeah, and you know what? I give him credit because a lot of people just might look at him and think a power back, but he has the speed to get around the corner, and he did that on that touchdown run. He did that against Tennessee, against his touchdown. He showed the ability to bounce it outside and get the yards and beat you to the pylon. So he did an excellent job of doing that. Because UConn, when he was in the backfield, they definitely was selling out, making sure they brought everybody, brought the whole house to stop him. Because
Hixie, hold on. Come here, Hixie. Get on this screen right now. Come over here. Coach Hicks right here with us. Hixie, what did you think coming off that game?
You know what they say, it's a whole lot better to have an ugly win than a pretty loss.
there you go.
Yeah, so for you, did you, when they had to run their sprints afterward, did you have any thoughts on that? Obviously, you didn't have to run sprints, so shout out to you for that.
I hadn't ran sprints in years, but no, the effort you put in is the effort you get out, and we needed to remind them that when we play in front of our fans at the Dome, we should play the game the way the game's designed to be played, and we left some stuff on the table today, so we just need to make sure that we represent the S and Syracuse the way it should be.
And I got a feeling that they're going to let people know this Friday night against Colgate.
I don't know much about Colgate, but I'd hate to be in their shoes.
There you go. Coach Hicks, give him a round of applause one more time. The best when it comes to strength conditioning and getting people into the NFL. Coach Hicks in his rightful spot on this staff here. And, I told him a long time ago how spoiled we are because we got a Southern guy up here in the north and was over there at NC State and came up to Syracuse, and for whatever reason, he has stayed here with us when he could have gone anywhere else. So happy to have Coach Hicks in the building at Myers Creek, and happy to have him in the building at the Dome, and obviously happy to have him in that new Performance Center, which is, by the way, one of the nicest, most beautiful things that I have seen, professional or college, in a long time. So happy to see, and I'm still trying to get in that pool at the Performance Center because you can raise and lower the floor in the pool depending on what's going on and how you're healing and what you're going in there for. So I just want Syracuse to know, and I want Fran to know, since we have a good relationship, when can I get in that pool?
It will help on your knee therapy too.
I know, I'm just saying, do I have to gimp a little with my knee going over there? Because we do interviews at the Performance Center, so I think I might sneak in there, maybe one of the coaches, Fran or Elijah or Jeff Nixon. I'm going to call everybody out, Coach Hicks. Somebody just let me in that door to maybe when they're running sprints I can get in the pool, something like that. I want to talk about a guy that I truly respect. I had the opportunity to speak with him many times And the first time we got to talk one-on-one, we spoke about God, and we spoke about his faith, and that was at camp. And this is a guy who I spoke with at ACC kickoff this year. We talked about the fact that he was a quarterback, then a tight end, then a quarterback, then a tight end. Thank you, sir. And shout out to Colby Clark here as well. And shout out to your son for getting a victory. The Clark family feeling good today here.
Yeah.
10 total tackles for St. John Fisher, all individual. And a shutout victory for St. John Fisher. So Syracuse and St. John Fisher get the win.
There you go.
And a young Clark making it happen here. So shout out to Colin. Now, the guy I'm talking about, quarterback to tight end to quarterback to tight end. He was at Michigan, then he came over to Syracuse. Dan Villari is a man who has talked with me about his faith over the years and how he was challenged. How he didn't really necessarily know where his faith was at. And he leaned on God, and he found his way. He told me last year when we sat down that he had one more year. I said, what are you going to do with it? This was a couple weeks to go. He said, I think I'm coming back. And I kept that to myself, and I waited for him to figure that out. And Dan Villari came back, and then Fran Brown told the world he is leading our tight end room. He's not a tight end, he is the tight end.
Yep.
After the game today, Fran Brown said that is the best player, his favorite player on the team right now. Dan Villari had the first down in the Dome this season when he was found by Steve Angeli for a 17-yard pass play over the middle. He was also a guy who willed them to a few more yards down the stretch. He knows I love him. I told him after the game, we're just getting started. There's a lot more that you need to show that you're going to show people, and I told him that I love him. What are your thoughts on Dan Villari, who I consider to be one of the strongest, faith-filled people that has leaned on God, bet on himself, and in a world that may not know him, they're going to get to know Dan Villari this year, number 89, tight end for Syracuse.
Yeah, I mean, this is not his first time coming out on the main scene. You know, we saw him in Yankee Stadium running the Wildcat against Pitt, and he did an excellent job in that game, and then people start paying a lot more attention to him. And, you know, so far in the first two games, I've been very impressed with him, especially his pass catching and stuff. Because a lot of people always want to say, how do we replace Arande and what the production Arande gave the team. Yeah. But no, Dan, I mean, give him credit today, 7 catches over 100 yards catching today?
First time he ever had 100 yards in a game in college. And he, receiving, 104 yards receiving. Led the team, like you said, 7 catches, 104. So, Villari, they needed every single one of those yards today.
Exactly, and you know what? He does that. He does the blocking and everything. So, I am impressed with him. And like I said, I think he has a lot more to bring to the team. They can feed off of him. You can tell Steve is very confident in him, and he believes in him, and he finds him across the middle or over into the flat. So he does a wonderful job looking for the tight end also.
Yeah, you know, Steve, you can tell that he trusts Dan Villari and that Villari trusts him and that relationship that they built. Speaking of trust, Justice Ross Simmons was trusted not once but twice by Steve Angeli late in this game. And I will go back to that 4th down pass play that Steve Angeli had to Justice Ross Simmons on the right sideline. I don't think that UConn knew what was going on. They looked frazzled, and they looked like they weren't set up for the play. Angeli hiked the ball. He dropped back. One of the guys on defense looked like he didn't know where he was supposed to go. It just so happens he was on that side with Justice Ross Simmons, and Ross Simmons caught that ball. And as soon as that ball dropped in, it was like as soon as his hands felt it, he had that happy feet in his legs. Right. He high-stepped his way, got all the way down the field and did his thing. And Justice Ross Simmons, shout out to him, man, for the work that he did on that play. And then, of course, in overtime, when they throw the ball out his way, he catches the ball, bobbles it a little bit, holds onto it, comes down, and we couldn't see it from the press box if he had gotten in because of where the fans are. And they ruled it a touchdown. And then I was sitting there thinking to myself, you better have Trip Woody kick this extra point fast. And they were waiting. I'm like, you better get Trip Woody to kick this thing before they blow that whistle. And then as soon as they let it go, and Woody went up with it, and he got that extra point, I was looking around going, hey, you just better be happy that they didn't replay that because they were replaying a lot on Syracuse today.
I think they did take a look at it, but it was an excellent job that he did by holding on to it and knowing where he was on the field or stretch back and get the touchdown.
100%.
You know, and just like you just said, you know, on the long 53-yard touchdown play, it looked like the corner and the safety kind of gave up on that pass. And then as soon as they let up, the ball just went right over his hand, and he kept running it and ran it out. So, you know, you definitely don't give up on a play. And he said that the coaches told him, hey, we come to you this way and be ready for it. And, you know, he stepped up. And, you know, a young man that came over with the hamstring injury last year, you know, he stepped up this year and made up a play.
You know, they kept talking about it last year where he was at. You know, that he was at like 80% when he scored. I think when he got his touchdown came down the field, they still said he wasn't 100%. He was still like 80%. So to, you know, Justice Ross Simmons, we've heard about him. We heard about him last year coming in. You hear about him all throughout the season, and he's not 100%. And you wait and you wait and you wait, and then you see him in this game, and he was such a spark for the team. And Steve Angeli said that there's no better hands that he has seen when it comes to college football. And Justice Ross, I mean, there were so many people. It wasn't that Syracuse came back and won this game. It wasn't just that. It was they came back and won the game, but it was with the guys they won it with.
Right.
Yasin Willis was a backup to LaQuinn Allen Jr. last year. And he gets in the end zone and gets the first lead for Syracuse in the game. Last week, like I said, against Tennessee, he has 3 touchdowns, almost 100 yards. He gets the first touchdown, first score for Syracuse this entire season when they played Tennessee. You look at Dan Villari and what he's done to be whatever they needed, a quarterback, a wide receiver, a tight end, a running back, you know, having him be under center and have those direct snaps when they were going through all the stress of not really having a quarterback when Derek Schrader went down.
Right.
So you see Villari in this game. Then you see Justice Ross Simmons come back from injury, like you said, and you see that he had not 1 but 2 touchdowns in this game. It wasn't that Syracuse won as much as how they did it and who they did it with. And it just goes to show you that when you bet on yourself and you have faith in yourself and you put the work in, and like Fran talks about and I've talked about a lot of times, you put your faith in God and you go out there and you work hard, you can do literally anything. And I think it wasn't only the win today for Syracuse, it was the guys that did it. The Justice Ross Simmons that people write off, the Dan Villaris that people forgot about, and the Yasin Willises that had to wait his turn last year.
Right, and both Dan and Justice said it in the press conference. It's like, you know, sometimes you can go through the game and the ball might not come your way, but you definitely just got to stay focused and be ready, because when the ball comes to you, they said, you know, you got to make the play, and that's definitely what they did. The coaching staff told him, hey, the pass is coming your way, get ready, be prepared for it. And he did exactly what they instructed them to do. They talked about how they make practice harder than the game all week long, and then that's where they come into the game, that they can, you know, stay focused and be ready. And when your number's called, you just got to execute.
Yeah, you know, and Steve Angeli, I mean, you heard some of the fans in the Dome booing him at a certain point. And, you know, Fran was asked about if he heard it, and Fran said, yeah, I hear it. But he said, you know, we got a love-hate relationship. He said, the fans love me, I love them. And sometimes the fans, you know, going to disagree with something, and I don't have to listen to it, right? And so, you know, but you and I both knew this from the media. We're in the media. I always tell people my badge says media, but I couldn't be more different than the majority of the media that's out there. And I knew the question was going to come in by the media of, did you think about putting in Ricky Collins? Now, I knew that was coming. And of course it came. And, you know, Fran said, you know, basically he made it pretty clear, like, I can't believe you asked me that question.
Yeah.
I can't believe you would say something like that. And you know what? When Steve Angeli came up after Fran to do the post game that we were there for, when he was asked the question from the same person in the room, he was very short and sweet. And I think that's because he was standing in the back. And I think he heard that question. But yeah, I mean, you know, some of the fans were getting frustrated, and of course, you know, you and I have been around the media enough to know that question was going to come in. But if Fran Brown gave up on his quarterback, not even 2 full games in, like a game and a half in, what does that say about Fran? What does it say about his faith and his trust in Steve Angeli? You know, I mean, to me, it's idiotic to take out Steve in the game when Steve was struggling a little bit, and yet you and I both knew that we were going to hear that at some point.
I mean, personally, it was Steve games to win or lose. You know, no matter what you said. And I know Ricky probably supports Steve just as everybody else on that team does. And like Fran said, hey, this is the guy he's dedicated to, and he's going to stick behind him. Yeah. You know, games have ebbs and flows. They goes up and down. Yeah. You just got to stick with it. And like you said, there were a few people in there cheering that, hey, we want to put Collins in. And then as soon as they said that, 53-yard touchdown. Yeah. And, you know, Syracuse is back in the game. So, you know, that's just a testament of, you know, just staying with it. You know, sometimes everything don't go your way, but you know what? There's a learning lesson in everything, and then you just don't give up.
Yeah, you know, like I talked with Steve about after the game, bend but don't break. You know, to understand that you've been challenged. And again, I mean, when you look at Steve Angeli, and keep in mind, he only started 1 game ever for Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. It was a bowl game in his first season. Right. And so starting in that bowl game, that was the only time we saw him as a starter at Notre Dame. So he comes to Syracuse with 1 opportunity where he started in his whole college career. So starting against Tennessee is his 2nd game ever, right? Mm-hmm. As a starter. And then this game at home, this is the first time that he's ever started a game at home at Notre Dame or at Syracuse, because the bowl game was the game he started at Notre Dame, which was on the road. So he's never been a starter in front of the hometown crowd. Mm-hmm. And he heard the cheers, he heard the boos, but he got better as time went on. Mm-hmm. And I really pay attention. I don't just pay attention to a player's talented, Isaac. I pay attention to how a player is the longer the game goes on. Mm-hmm. And Steve Angeli got better the longer he was on the field. And you can't say that about every quarterback, and you can't say that about every player.
Yeah, and you said something important to me, like it was on that one play where he got blitzed and knocked down to the ground. Oh, yeah. And you were like, how amazing that he just popped back up.
Popped right back up.
You know what? And, you know, a lot of guys were probably laid there and had to get some attention. But, you know, like you said, he probably didn't want to show a little toughness there. And give the guy credit, you know, like I said, he's a tough young man. And, you know, start number 2 in his career, you know. So that's one of the things that, you know, you want to put somebody down, you know, and when they're on their trials and tribulations and stuff like that, you just stick with them and see them, how they're going to come through.
Yeah, you know, and again, I mean, I can't really say it enough, just how he played down the stretch. I mean,
imagine how much he feels right now, you know, bringing the team back to that victory.
Well, and that's the thing, and, you know, to go back to the hit that he took, and Hicksy, you know this from strength and conditioning, Steve Angeli took probably 2 or 3 hits today that would have kept most quarterbacks on the ground. But that guy popped right back up. What'd you say? Yeah, Bergen Catholic, like you said. Steve Angeli, the way that man got hit, the way he got popped, and he just sprang his way back up. Mm-hmm. If Syracuse fans are paying attention, or anybody that's playing Syracuse is paying attention, you're going to understand something. Steve Angeli can take a hit. And if I am a teammate of Steve Angeli, if I'm an O lineman, a D lineman, linebacker, DB, wide receiver, tight end, kicker, punter, running back, whatever, long snapper, when I see him take a hit that he took today, and he gets right back up, I'm thinking to myself, damn. Yeah. I'm happy to have a leader like that. I think it cannot go understated that when you see your leader get hit and just spring right back up and be like, all right, guys, next play. For him to be like that, his toughness, his mental toughness, his physical toughness, his emotional toughness, his spiritual toughness, that would make me want to play for him. And I'm going to say this, if he didn't have respect from a few guys before the game, I think he's definitely got respect today.
Oh, yeah, he definitely earned it today, you know, hands down. You know, like I told you coming into this. A tough young man, stands in the pocket, willing to wait to the last second.
Yeah.
You know what? He doesn't flinch. You know, so.
Because he didn't get hit, he got sacked.
Oh yeah,
today.
yeah. It was
he
a
had two
blindside.
blindside hits today.
Mm-hmm. So you know, give him credit. You know, and he didn't flinch. So and he has to feel amazing right now to know how that game started, even late in the game where he throw that pick. You know, he probably made a mistake, and then you know what? He still stuck with it and got the team down the field and scored.
Well, yeah, you know, he said to me before the game, you know, obviously taking care of the football is incredibly important.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him a question when we had our one-on-one conversation on Wake Up Call with Steve Angeli, and you can check it out by going to our Podbean, wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. You can also see it on all of our social media, Facebook at wakeupcalldt, X at calldt, and Instagram at wakeupcall_dt. But when I spoke with Steve, he said nothing is worse than losing. Like there's nothing that he basically despises more than to lose a game. And I said to him, I said, between you and Fran Brown, who hates losing more between the two of you?
Right.
And he said, man, he's like, I think if you talk to him, it would be him. You talk to me, it would be me. He's like, I'm going to say me, but you know, he just said there's no worse feeling than losing. And you could tell today that with his back against the wall and some people in the city that he calls home now booing him, he was like, I hate losing so much that I'm not going to allow myself to feel this for another 6 days.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good quality to have in a leader. You know, somebody that's not just going to accept losing, you know, and I think that's something that Fran looks into. A player, you know, you want to look in the eyes of his players, or even after a game when they do take a loss.
Yeah.
You better be in that corner crying your eyes out and angry and upset, because if you're sitting over there nonchalant, that really doesn't sit well with Coach Fran. So, you know, I think that's something he reveres and looks into a player to make sure, hey, they got that winning attitude, because that's something that you got to develop over time, and you just can't just settle for defeat.
No, you know, and there's something about this team, and Dan Villari said it after the game. He said a Syracuse team in the past may not have fought their way back.
Right.
And I was thinking the same thing. I mean, so many times we've heard, you know, last year with Syracuse, this year with Syracuse, that, you know, under Fran Brown, this team seems to fight harder. Mm-hmm. You and I have seen over a decade of games in the Dome. And looking at some of those games, there's been times where Syracuse is down 14-6, then it's 21-6, then it's 24-6, then it's 30-6, and that's it. I mean, last year we saw a team claw their way to 10-3, and this year we saw them claw their way right now to 1-1. And you know, like Villari said, you may not have seen this in the past with another Syracuse team, but he said they're getting closer. They're bonding. They're just finding a way to get closer and closer to each other. And that's got to be music to Fran Brown's ears.
Yeah, what the coach will say, he said he wanted the players to love on each other.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you love each other, you want to fight for each other. So, you know,
if you love each other, you're not going to point fingers.
Right, exactly. You can take criticism from somebody that you love. So, you know, definitely coming closer together, you know, you can tell that's the culture of the team that Fran's building. And you know what? They're not going to give up on each other.
No, not at all. And we're, like I said before, we're happy to be here. Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, bringing you Tortora and Alford postgame. Syracuse, UConn, and Syracuse's 27-20 overtime victory in the first overtime. Isaac Alford, myself, Dan Tortora, we are on site, on location at Myers Creek in the Syracuse Inner Harbor, and I am so happy that we have the opportunity to work with Myers Creek with the Player of the Week every week on Wake Up Call in the morning. And of course, you can hear from Myers Creek in their multiple locations on Wake Up Call in the morning. And of course, we're going to be here for all of Syracuse's football home games. We will either be post-game or pre-game, depending on the time. So we're post-game today with the noon start, and we will be pre-game for Syracuse Colgate, as they will be Friday night. So we will be with you before 7 p.m. But I want to thank Colby Clark, I want to thank Cody Fideli, I want to thank everybody here, the whole team and family at Myers Creek for all that they do and all the tireless work that they put into this. We got this thing done to do the Wake Up Call game day broadcast in the 11th hour because I didn't want to miss out on the opportunity to be with the fans and to just be on this ride with you all season. So I can't thank Myers Creek enough for that. And I know Cody can hear me right now. The Albuquerque turkey is the best thing in here. It is the best thing in here, for sure. Now, the pizza I've been staring at, but the Albuquerque turkey, I could get that once a day and be a happy man. So that might have to be on my death row menu, because the bacon jam's got a little kick to it, but it's enough of a sweetness, a little bit of spicy, and I feel like that's my personality, sweet with a little spice. So I'm good with it. I like it a lot. What are you going to get today, Isaac? You going to get some pizza with me? You going to get the Albuquerque turkey?
I'm going to have to try that turkey out.
You going to try the turkey out?
Yeah,
all right.
Why not?
So we're going to get 2 Albuquerque turkeys. I'm going to put that down here right now. Might as well make that happen. In the room. So yeah, shout out to Pops and Mom in the building here today. So we're happy to be here on the air and to spend some time with you here today.
Good to see you, sir.
And of course, Mom and Dad in the building, Coach Hicks in the building. So happy to be here with you. We're here on Facebook Live and YouTube Live, both /Wake Up Call DT. Can't thank you enough for hanging out with us online as well as on Podbean, on internet streaming radio. We're worldwide to you on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com as well. So, Isaac, we talked about a bunch of different layers to this game. Mm-hmm. But let's go to the head coach. And let's look at Fran Brown. What did Fran Brown show you today? He took 2 of his 3 timeouts when there was like 4 minutes or so left in the game. Wanted to make sure his team had a couple minutes to work with. So timing on the timeouts that he took, overall coaching today. What did you see from Fran Brown when we talk about bend but don't break?
You know what? I think he did an excellent job coaching time management on that drive at the end. Actually, the offense was kind of, like you're saying, getting their legs under them. They were really efficient because there was about a minute left. They left UConn with to come back down. But no, I thought he did an excellent job with managing the timeouts. He actually did that in the first half too, which led to the 3-point field goal going into halftime. So, you know what? You got to give him credit for running that. And then I know he said it was a question asked in the press conference, like going on those early 4th down plays. And to me, this is my thought process. If it's third and short, and you can't get it, then I'm just like football guys are telling you, hey, take the points. And late in that game, it could have been probably an 18-17 game, but you know what? Woulda, coulda, shoulda. We can say what we want, but they stuck it out. So maybe give some different decisions. But if you believe in yourself, then there's nothing wrong with going for it.
Yeah, no, and he went for it on a couple different times, like you said, in the game, and a couple 4th and 2 opportunities. Mm-hmm. And he went for it when they went up against Tennessee. And the thing is if you go for it and you get it, you're a genius.
Exactly. And
if you go for it and you don't get it, then people want to critique it or whatnot. But obviously on 4th and 2, one of those hits that we were talking about on Angeli,
right.
Guy hit him on the right side. It was a sack fumble. And then the ball bounced balls like 20-some-odd yards going in UConn's direction, and UConn was able to get it. However, Syracuse's defense did not allow them to get anything off of it. So I got to say that over and over and over again today. Syracuse's defense, yes, they gave up a few plays. And then late, they allowed Skylar Bell to get down the field with Joe Fagnano's 3 passes to him. And so the defense has things they have to clean up. But the defense also forced a lot of 3-and-outs in the second half, like I said, and they did a lot of good things to put Syracuse in better footing. That game could have gotten out of hand, and Syracuse's defense made sure that the mistakes made by the offense didn't cost them more points.
Definitely defense in the second half was totally different than the first half. And again, it wasn't like it was that bad in the first half. They just had a couple of plays break down, like I said, a nice backwards pass, touchdown pass, and to start the game off. But it wasn't like that we were playing horrible or missing tackles all over the place. They gave up one run for about, 45 yards. But other than that, they did exactly what they need to do in the second half to give the offense a chance to get back to the game. And so, you know what? Give hats off to the defense for not allowing UConn to run the score up on them when they had a chance. If you hold a team under at least 20 or less, and the offense is scoring like they're doing, you should come out on top on most of those games.
Yeah, and so looking back at the game, Alex Honig, 15-yard pass from John Nieder, where we saw quarterback Joe Fagnano throw a lateral to his wide receiver, who threw it downfield to a wide open Alex Honig, who was in the end zone, and that came after Fagnano didn't hit his tight end on the first drive that UConn had, where he threw the ball too low.
Right.
And then Syracuse's Trip Woody. By the way, Trip Woody, true freshman, kicker for Syracuse. His first field goal attempt was a field goal make, and it was from 38 yards out. It made it 7-3. Syracuse getting on the board. And then Mel Brown had that 45-yard touchdown run, made it 14-3 UConn. Then Woody had a 32-yard field goal, made it 14-6 at halftime. And then Chris Freeman had a 35-yard field goal, made it 17-6 UConn. And then we saw Justice Ross Simmons on the 53-yard pass play from Steve Angeli. The 2-point conversion failed to make it 17-12. Then Yasin Willis's 3-yard touchdown run with 48 seconds left made it 20-17 after the 2-point conversion went through from Steve Angeli to Darrell Gill Jr. And then Chris Freeman on a 41-yard field goal with 1 second to go forced overtime. And we all know that Justice Ross Simmons took care of overtime. So that's how the game got figured out down the stretch. And ultimately, Syracuse getting that win, 27-20. And it's funny because when the game was going on, one of the guys in the media came up to me and he goes, "This feels like Syracuse-Rutgers." I said, "It feels like Syracuse-Villanova."
Yeah.
And what happened in Syracuse-Villanova?
Overtime victory.
Overtime victory. And I said that multiple quarters before we got there.
Yeah.
But Isaac always tells me to not speak things into existence. Apparently I did that by accident. So, I'm going to speak into existence another Fran Shirley Temple. Wait, there it is. So we got another one here. I'm doubling down on the Coach Fran Shirley Temple here. So it's just like I said, I had the original recipe one yesterday, and now we've kicked it up a notch with this one. But I got to ask Fran why he decided to go Shirley Temple, because Fran doesn't know this, but it's actually something that I'll order when I go out. If I'm on vacation, sometimes I'll do it.
Yeah, I think he's like you, though. He's like a non-alcoholic guy.
Yeah, he doesn't really like alcohol.
Yeah, he did. So you both fit that bill perfectly.
Yeah, so I finished one. I'm about to get another here. So, Isaac, before we go, as we're here with Syracuse fans celebrating a 27-20 victory over Northeast rival, historically, UConn. Now, UConn's 1-1 and Syracuse is 1-1. What are your, immediately thoughts going, 2 games in? Best thing Syracuse is doing, worst thing Syracuse is doing as they go to game 3?
Best thing they're doing is they're trusting in their quarterback. I think everybody came into the season wondering, what would this offense look like? To me, it's not really a big change from Kyle McCord. They believe in Steve Angeli. They're giving him the keys to the car. They drive it the way you want to drive it. Because, again, like I said, for a guy to start 2 games and he's thrown, 90-something passes already in 2 games? So, they believe in the quarterback, and that's going to be
he had 40-something passes against
Tennessee. Yeah, exactly.
I think he had 43 and 53 today.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's 96 passes in 2 games.
In 2 games. So, they're believing in the quarterback. What I would like to see them do a little bit more, probably lean on the run. Yeah. But I guess when the defense is not going to allow you to run the ball, they were selling out when Yasin was in. I was hoping that Yasin would be able to get 100 yards today, but that wasn't in the cards today, but he was critical at the end getting the touchdown.
Yeah.
So, that's why I like to see him be a little bit more balanced, because that can probably help Steve out, not having the defense always in attack mode. Because that's what I felt like UConn was. They had a little bit of an advantage on the defense. They can bring pressure. Yeah. They didn't have to stand back and watch. So, maybe get a little bit balanced on the offense.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. So I'll go with you on that. And, obviously I think Syracuse needs to give the ball a little bit more to the rushing attack. What I do like about Steve Angeli, and that Syracuse hasn't been doing it these last couple of years, because when I saw it, I was like, oh, thank God it's back. And what I'm talking about is the check down.
Oh, yeah.
With Steve Angeli just always looking for Will Nixon. And I said going into the season, Yasin Willis told me in a one-on-one conversation that he's getting back to being himself. That's why he's wearing number 6 again. the number he grew up with. And I said, well, what's getting back to Yasin? What does that mean? He said downhill, like that power back, that guy that's going to run between the tackles. And so, I said, okay, if he's going between, then Will Nixon to me is the guy that's maybe going to catch some passes out of the backfield. He caught a bunch of passes today out of the backfield. Steve Angeli looked to him multiple times, and it was reminiscent of Ryan Nassib and Prince Tyson Gully today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So,
good comparison.
I love seeing that. But I would say what's Syracuse doing the best at? Well, I do want to make this note about Yasin. He said after the Tennessee game, they asked him about what his thoughts are when he's by the goal line. He said that nobody's stopping me. No one's going to stop me from getting in the end zone. He was dead serious, and he just stared forward. He's like, nobody can stop me.
Yeah.
And guess what? Today, he showed you again. Nobody stopped him from getting in the end zone. And going up the middle maybe didn't work, so he bounced to the outside. Credit to Jeff Nixon and Angeli and Yasin and the offensive line for adjusting to what they saw from UConn today. Yasin now has 4 rushing touchdowns in 2 games to start the season, his first season as the true starter at running back for Syracuse. He's only a sophomore, and speaking of Northeast football, Syracuse stole him from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So remember that, and Pittsburgh coming to the Dome this year. My thing that I think Syracuse is doing the best right now is how they finish a game.
Yeah.
How they finished against Tennessee and how they finished this game. 28-26, Tennessee, Syracuse in the last 3 quarters after Syracuse went down 17-0 against Tennessee at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in the Aflac kickoff. And then in this game, Syracuse being down 14-6, winning 27-20. So you look at that, that's a 21-6 swing in the matchup for the Orange. So I would say the best thing Syracuse is doing is the bend but don't break, is not giving up, having faith in themselves, and just having faith in God and having faith in each other. I would say the thing that they need to work on the most, or the thing they're struggling with the most, is they have to be more of a force on defense. They have to scare people. They have to be more ferocious, more tenacious. They got to lay some hits down that remind me of Chandler Jones and Arthur Jones and Keith Bullock and so many guys that came through Syracuse history. Obviously you got to give a shout out to Tim Green. I want to see Syracuse defensively start to lock people up and make people pay for something. Like the one thing that you and I talked, and I was gonna say something to you about it, and I'll say something to you now. But the one thing that Syracuse, it doesn't matter who their coach is, doesn't matter who their D coordinator is, doesn't matter who their personnel are, they always struggle to stop the ball on a pass over the middle.
Yeah.
And it happened again today. So I just want to see Syracuse make you pay for stuff, not injured players, just hit them and let them know. So I think the defense needs to be more consistent. They need to attack more. But I think the positive is Syracuse bends, but they don't break. They built on what they did against Tennessee. And, if you're going to play Tennessee that well, then you better beat UConn.
Right.
And they did that, and they got a victory. So to these fans in my hometown, I'm happy that we get to celebrate a win at Myers Creek on 720 Van Rensselaer Street in Syracuse, New York, Syracuse Inner Harbor. So with that being said, my guy right here,
Isaac Alford.
myself, Dan Tortora and Alford, bringing you pre- and post-game shows on site, on location, Myers Creek, for home games this season. We will see you pre-game for the upcoming game against Colgate. Make sure you stay close to our social media, Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, X at Call DT, and Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT to know what time we're going to be, because each game is different based on what time kickoff is. So we're post-game today, pre-game for this Friday, and that's going to be Friday, September 12th. And the game kicks off at 7 o'clock. Isaac and I will be with you before that. I want to thank Colby Clark, Cody Fidelli, the entire team at Myers Creek, and go out and see them on 33 Rippleton Road in Cazenovia as well. I want to thank all of our supporters on Wake Up Call, everybody that's here, everybody that's online. As we always tell you on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, God bless, no stress, Do your best. Shout out to Syracuse for getting a win.
Oh, yeah.
One more round of applause for the Orange tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Y'all have a good night. Get home safe and enjoy Myers Creek.